One of the things that Egypt is popular for is being the land of pyramids, and with the amount of attention that they attract, you'll be surprised by the amount of misinformation about these ancient structures going around. However, sometimes we get to hear from real experts the truth about these ancient structures, and the truth is sometimes shocking. In this video, we present you with Graham Hancock's revelation of the terrifying truth about these pyramids. When many visitors see the pyramids in Egypt in person for the first time, what comes to their minds is how a nation of uncivilized people managed to put up such magnificent structures. We will get to the many theories about how these pyramids were built, including Graham Hancock's theory. However, something even more fascinating is how these pyramids evolved with time. Simply put, the Egyptians did not start out building very tall pyramids. The question is, how did they get there? To date, about 118 pyramids of various definitions have been discovered across Egypt, although some sources put the figure at 138. They are primarily on the Nile's west bank and are organized into several clusters or pyramid fields. After the Kushites took over much of Egypt, there was a resurgence in pyramid construction in the Kingdom of Kush. The Meroitic period saw the construction of over 200 pyramids across 4 pyramid clusters in the region of Meroe, also known as the island of Meroe in modern-day Sudan. According to one theory, pyramids evolved from mud brick bench-like structures known as mastabas, meaning stone bench, which were rectangular funerary structures with inward-sloping sides that were mostly built during the early dynastic period. Mastabas had a burial chamber cut into the bedrock, as well as a second chamber called a serdam that held precious items and essentials for the deceased in the afterlife. Mastaba construction continued for high-ranking officials and nobility into the Middle Kingdom, but they were less common by the New Kingdom, having been largely replaced by rock-cut tombs. The first proto-pyramid-like structure to evolve in Egypt was the Pyramid of Djoser, also called the Step Pyramid. It is located in the Saqqara necropolis during the 3rd dynasty of the Old Kingdom. The pyramid began as a square mastaba-like structure, though mastabas are typically rectangular in shape, and evolved into a 62.5-meter tall 6-stepped monument with an underground labyrinth of chambers and galleries cut into the bedrock. The Step Pyramid was meant as the funerary tomb of Pharaoh Djoser, the first pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty. The huge complex served to facilitate the pharaoh's successful afterlife in order for him to be eternally reborn. The substructure is a maze of tunneled chambers and galleries used for the burial of the pharaoh, the burial of other family members, and storing goods and offerings. The Step Pyramid is one of Egypt's first major monumental stone structures, laying the groundwork for the pyramids that popped up in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dynasties. The next time the Egyptians tried their hands at building a pyramid, the results were not so impressive. It was the handiwork of Sekhemkhet Djoserti, the second pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty, who attempted to build the Buried Pyramid, also known as the Pyramid of Sekhemkhet, at the Saqqara necropolis. The structure only rose to a height of 8 meters. The Buried Pyramid was designed after Djoser's Step Pyramid with the intention of being stepped from the start and surpassing its predecessor. But construction only managed to rise above ground level, giving the appearance of a mastaba rather than an actual pyramid. The substructure is made up of 136 unfinished galleries arranged in a U-shape around the pyramid, leading to the main burial chamber. Why didn't this pyramid rival its predecessor in height? Historians claim the dwarf nature of the Buried Pyramid was due to Sekhemkhet's brief reign as pharaoh. Apparently, his successor couldn't be bothered to complete it. During the 3rd dynasty, another Step Pyramid was built near the necropolis of Zoyet el-Aryan, possibly by Pharaoh Khaba. This pyramid was smaller than the precursor pyramids of Djoser and Sekhemkhet, but researchers disagree on whether it was completed or left unfinished. The pyramid had 5 steps, but only 2 remain today, exposing the pyramid's core. A long, steep stairway and corridor lead to a straight vertical shaft and a T-shaped crossway in the substructure. Another passageway with 32 storage chambers connects to this, as does another passage that descends to the main burial chamber. The next attempt was more successful and spanned the reigns of 2 kings. The Pyramid of Meidum was the first straight-sided pyramid possibly built for Huni, the last pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty, and continued by Sneferu, the founder of the 4th dynasty during the Old Kingdom. The pyramid was technically a step pyramid and had significant construction issues because the builders selected a sandy site instead of a rocky area. In addition, the steps were not horizontal, compromising the structure's stability and causing the outer layers to partially collapse. The substructure is made up of a long staircase leading to the central burial chamber, which was left unfinished with raw walls and wooden supports. There was also the bent pyramid commissioned by Snefru. It was a smooth-sided pyramid at the Darshur necropolis. This pyramid is distinctive among Egyptian pyramids thanks to its bent appearance, which was caused by a change in the pyramid's angle during construction. As to why the change in angle, some researchers say it was caused by the collapse of the Pyramid of Meidum, or that it became necessary when the bent pyramid began to show signs of instability while still under construction. The substructure is relatively simple, with two entrances leading to chambers with high corbelled roofs. Now, Snefru turned out to be a prolific pyramid builder, as he was also behind the Red Pyramid, also known as the North Pyramid. It is also located in the Darshur necropolis. This pyramid has the distinction of being the first successful attempt to build a true smooth-sided pyramid. And despite its name, the Red Pyramid was not always red, and it was originally encased in white Tura limestone. Among the most popular pyramids is the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu. This was built by the 4th dynasty's second pharaoh Khufu, son of Snefru. The pyramid was constructed in the Giza necropolis on the Giza Plateau and would later be honored as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The Great Pyramid of Giza would remain the tallest artificial structure at the height of 146.7 meters until the completion of Lincoln Cathedral in England in AD 1311. There are 3 known chambers within the pyramid, the lowest of which was a rock-cut chamber in the bedrock that appears unfinished. The Queen's and King's chambers are located in the superstructure, and recent studies have revealed a large cavity above the Grand Gallery. Khufu added 2 mortuary temples, 3 smaller pyramids for his wives, a satellite pyramid, and several mastabas for high-ranking officials and nobles around the pyramid. Another pyramid that was an unfinished business was the Northern Pyramid of Zoyat al-Aryan. It was built during the 4th dynasty and was abandoned quite early during the construction. And still wowing people today is the Pyramid of Khafra that was built by the 4th dynasty pharaoh Khafra, son of Khufu and heir to Djedefre's throne. The pyramid is the 2nd largest structure built at the Giza necropolis, with the outer layers encased in pink granite for the lower courses and Tura limestone for the upper. The pyramid is shorter in height than the Pyramid of Khufu, but in order to appear to be superior to his father, Khafra cheated a little. He built his pyramid on a layer of bedrock 10 meters higher. So how did the Egyptians manage to build their pyramids without modern lifting tools? This question has occupied the thought of many scientists, and as you can expect, they have developed multiple theories in their bid to answer the question. One of the most popular theories is the ramp theory. According to the ramp theory, the pyramids were built with sheer force and tens of thousands of workers using a technique known as ramp systems. At the same time, various theories exist regarding the types of ramps that would have been used. Some experts believe that the ancient Egyptians used straight ramps that ran up the outside walls of the pyramids. Other experts, however, believe that the pyramid builders used either ramps that curved around these walls or ramping systems built within the pyramids themselves. Recently, archaeologists discovered the remains of an ancient ramp system in the 4,500-year-old Hatnub quarry in the eastern desert of Egypt that they believe offers a definitive explanation of how ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. The system would have been used to transport heavy alabaster stones up a steep ramp, according to archaeologists from the Institut Français d'Archéologie Orientale in Cairo and the University of Liverpool in England. Some experts have also suggested it was possibly the method by which Egyptians constructed the Great Pyramid in the name of Pharaoh Khufu. However, there is one flaw in this theory. The Giza pyramids were constructed of granite rather than alabaster. So how would the ancient builders have used these ramps? The ramp system consisted of a central ramp flanked by 2 staircases punctuated by numerous post holes. According to researchers from the University of Liverpool and Cairo's French Institute for Oriental Archaeology, the Egyptians could have pulled the alabaster blocks out of the quarry using a sled that carried a stone block and was attached with ropes to the wooden posts. A design like this would have relieved some of the strain on the workers who had to pull these massive loads. There could have been several ramps at various levels on each side of the pyramid, and a ramp could have coiled around the pyramid as it grew in height. Once a stone block had reached the desired level, wooden rockers could have been used to move it into place. Interestingly, this theory is supported by the presence of sleds in ancient wall paintings, as well as images of giant statues being pulled by hundreds of men. It would, however, have been a lengthy, time-consuming procedure.
You can say, oh, perhaps they built a ramp and hauled the stones up the ramp. But then you have to confront basic laws of physics.
Well, Hancock believes this theory is not correct, and this is due to nothing other than sweet old physics. Hancock argues that you can't haul a stone weighing tons up a slope of over 10 degrees. So if the builders limited themselves to a 10 degrees incline, it means the ramp had to be very long before it can elevate the stones up to 350 feet. In fact, the ramp would have had to be as massive as the pyramid itself. Hancock also argues that the ramp couldn't have been made from sand, as it would have collapsed under the weight of the heavy blocks. So if the ramp was made of strong and durable materials, it would have left evidence that researchers could use to confirm their existence. However, there has been no physical evidence of these ramps, not even ruins or bases. Another theory is the water shaft theory. The water shaft theory differs from the ramp theory at most points, beginning with how the stones were transported. While the ramp theory talks about dragging stones across the desert, the water shaft theory describes how special canals were built all the way to the construction sites, allowing the stones to float all the way there. Floats were supposedly made of cedar wood or inflated animal skins wrapped in papyrus, and when attached to the stones, they could be dragged away from the shore. The canals connected to a moat that ran the length of the construction site, allowing blocks to be floated to the side where they were needed. 4 water pipelines were allegedly used to float the blocks uphill, and they were extended as the pyramid grew. A series of gates controlled how the blocks moved from the moat up to the top, and a pool of water on the build site's roof allowed for additional floating and positioning without any dragging or real heavy lifting. According to this theory, the canals and water elevators made it relatively easy to move the stones. The problem with this theory is there is no concrete documented evidence to support it. However, traces of water throughout the structure and imperfections along the middle of all 4 sides have been found to support it. Hancock says the builders could have had supernatural help to do the heavy lifting of the construction work.
Maybe the idea that they regard as absurd, namely that psychic powers were cultivated by ancient civilizations.
Hancock's idea is that the builders were from an ancient civilization that developed to use the power of the human mind to achieve physical work, like moving heavy stones. So why don't modern humans have the same psychic power today? Hancock says maybe humans simply lost these powers, which would be a huge loss. But Hancock mentions that there are reports of some people today with telekinetic powers that help them move objects using the power of their minds. So if we can have these today, why couldn't these ancient builders possess the same? Hancock explains how, contrary to what science may say, consciousness is not local to the brain, but it can exert itself outside a person's body, allowing them to achieve tasks that might seem impossible. And guess what? Hancock believes we can wake up these amazing capabilities that have lapsed in us again and do modern-day wonders. But even if scientists are able to work out how the ancient pyramids were constructed, there is still a mystery that has to be addressed. How were the massive stones moved into place? A wall painting discovered in Jehuti-Hotep's ancient tomb around 1900 BC depicts 172 men hauling an enormous statue using ropes attached to a sled. According to study lead author Daniel Bon, a physics professor at the University of Amsterdam, a person can be seen standing on the front of the sled pouring water over the sand. The water, it is hypothesized, made it easier for sleds carrying massive granite stones to be dragged across the desert sand to the pyramid construction sites. Adding water to the sand would have increased its stiffness, allowing the sleds to glide more easily across the surface. This is because water droplets form bridges between the grains of sand, allowing them to stick together. It's also why building a sandcastle with wet sand is easier than with dry sand. Another mystery of the ancient pyramids is exactly why these structures were built. While there have been theories that they were used as burial chambers, the internal construction of the Great Pyramid, for instance, suggests another use that you might have never thought about: a power plant. Many consider it to be one of the best examples of ancient energy machines, with some claiming it was a Tesla-like power plant built thousands of years ago. Besides, no mummy has ever been found inside the Giza Pyramid. According to these theorists, it was a massive ancient structure capable of harnessing the Earth's natural properties to create or produce vast amounts of energy. Archaeologists and theorists claim in the Netflix documentary The Pyramid Code that the ancient Egyptians came to the Great Pyramid to get more healthy energy. One Egyptologist said it appears they were trying to control the flow of energy and use it for their own purposes. In fact, this energy must have been used by the ancient Egyptians as well as other cultures, such as the ancient Mayans. Many accounts from those who have made the arduous climb to the top of the Great Pyramid mention noticeable energy shifts, prickling sensations in the body's extremities, and even cases of electric shock. Visitors are banned from climbing to the top of the Great Pyramid, but that was not always so. British inventor Sir William Siemens made it to the flat, settled summit in the late 1800s. When he reached the summit, one of his guides noticed a shrill ringing noise in his ears when he raised his hands with his fingers spread. Siemens then raised a forefinger and felt a prickling sensation spread through his hands from the tip. Soon after, the inventor went to quench his thirst with a celebratory sip of wine, and when his lips touched the bottle, it caused an electric shock. According to the Netflix documentary, these were energy pyramids built to conduct energy or change frequencies over large areas of land. The only thing missing for the Great Pyramid of Giza to function as a power plant was a source of energy, which is why the Great Pyramid's ancient builders took advantage of the Giza Plateau's water. The Giza Plateau, where the pyramids stand, is riddled with underground water channels. This means that the high volume of water flowing through these underground cavities can generate an electrical current, a phenomenon known as physioelectricity. Physioelectricity can be defined as electricity obtained from the natural physical movements with the help of certain harnessing devices. Even the shape of the pyramid leads some to believe that pyramid power plants existed and still exist. Evidence to support this theory that the pyramids were used to produce energy has come from scholarly sources. An international research group that recently took an interest in how the Great Pyramid would interact with electromagnetic waves of a resonant length found out that it can concentrate electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers, as well as under its base where the third unfinished chamber is located. These conclusions were reached using numerical modeling and physics analytical methods. The researchers first estimated that radio waves with lengths ranging from 200 to 600 meters could induce resonances in the pyramid. They then created a model of the pyramid's electromagnetic response and calculated the extinction cross-section. This value aids in estimating how much incident wave energy the pyramid can scatter or absorb under resonant conditions. Finally, the scientists obtained the electromagnetic field distribution inside the pyramid under the same conditions. The scientists used a multipole analysis to explain the findings. This method is commonly used in physics to investigate the interaction of a complex object with an electromagnetic field. In the method, the object scattering the field is replaced by a collection of simpler radiation sources known as multipoles. The field scattering by an entire object coincides with the collection of multipole radiation. Knowing the type of each multipole allows the researchers to predict and explain the distribution and configuration of the scattered fields throughout the system. While researching the interaction of light and dielectric nanoparticles, the researchers were drawn to the Great Pyramid. Light scattering by nanoparticles is affected by their size, shape, and the refractive index of the source material. For a long time, people have theorized the Egyptian pyramids were built using slave labor, but evidence proves that was not the case. According to the evidence, they were built by a skilled labor force, as explained in the Veritasium video above. These were elite construction workers who were fed and qualified for housing during their assignment. Many Egyptologists, including archaeologist Mark Lerner, who excavated a city for workers in Giza, agree that the pyramids were built by a rotating labor force in a modular team-based kind of organization. Graffiti discovered on the site includes team names such as Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure. The excavation also uncovered enough cattle, sheep, and goat bones to feed several thousand people, even if they ate meat every day. This is evidence that workers ate like princes on the job sites. Another excavation by Lerner's friend, famed Egyptian archaeologist and Great Pyramid expert, Zahi Hawass, discovered worker cemeteries at the foot of the pyramids, indicating that those who died were buried in a place of honor. Of course, the work was extremely dangerous, and those who did it were lauded and recognized for their accomplishment. Laborers were also fulfilling an obligation that every Egyptian owed to those above them and eventually to the pharaoh. However, this should not be confused with a monetary debt. Lerner described back as a type of feudal duty known to the ancient Egyptians. While enslaved people existed in Egypt, he believes the builders of the pyramids were more like the Amish, performing the same kind of obligatory communal labor as a barn raising in some communities. Other excavations have uncovered the sophisticated skills these ancient builders managed to acquire. Despite lacking compasses, they could plot directions on the compass. They also possessed the technology to design the pyramids because they could make right angles and levels. But what about quarrying and removing the Great Pyramid's 2 million yellow limestone blocks? Evidence shows that the Great Pyramid was built by a skilled workforce who quarried an Olympic swimming pool's worth of stone every 8 days for 23 years. And they did so with the only metal they had available to them, copper. This may sound incredible, but modern experiments have shown that with the technology available, this amount of stone could be quarried and moved by a team of 1,200 to 1,500 workers, roughly the same number of people archaeologists believe were on site during construction. The limestone was quarried right on the spot. In fact, the Sphinx was mostly dug out of the earth rather than built atop it. Let's hear what you find most fascinating about the massive pyramids in the comments section below.